Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date, May 7th, episode 147 of our podcast. And let's get started with our tip-off topics with breaking news: Steph Curry injured. Obviously, we saw last night in game number one as Steph Curry exited the game with a hamstring injury and did not return. But now we got the official word already from Shams Charania. Reported earlier today that he has been ruled out of Game 2 versus Minnesota with a grade 1 left hamstring strain. This is the first time that he sustained this in his career. Now, they've already talked about he's going to be out about a week. That's going to be touch and go here, folks, and I want people to understand this. If you are Steve Kerr, I think you take your time as long as you're in the series. Obviously, he's going to miss game number 2. We'll see what happens with if they win or lose game 2. If they lose game 2, obviously it's 1-1. You could probably slow play it, maybe through game 3 if they're down 2-1. If they win game 2, you maybe take more time. Got to realize how tricky hamstring injuries are, folks, and the fact that you have to make sure that you kind of get him healthy, because it's a type of injury that can end up being a more significant injury as time goes along. So let's make sure that we get Steph back healthy, which is going to be a big storyline for the remainder of the series and for the playoffs, depending on how far the Warriors go. Speaking of Game 2, there was a really interesting trend that took place in the Game 1s of the Eastern and Western Conference semifinals. And that is, for the first time in NBA history, all 4 road teams won. Pacers won Game 1 by 9. Knicks in a barn burner won by 3 in overtime. Obviously, the Aaron Gordon shot versus the Thunder with about under 4 seconds left gave them the win. And then obviously we'll talk also about the Warriors' 99-88 win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. But here's why I think this is significant. Number one, I don't think people understand that 7 out of the 8 teams in the Eastern and Western Conference semifinals are repeat from last year. So it's not a team in a new spot. The team that's in a spot this year that wasn't in last year is Golden State with championship pedigree. So these teams aren't scared of the moment, folks. I want people to make sure they understand that. But also the fact that every one of these teams won at least 48 games. These weren't slouches, folks. I mean, if you look at 48 wins by Golden State as a 7th seed, it's still a significant number. I think 49 was the number for, I do believe, I think that's Minnesota. And then obviously the Knicks had 51. The Pacers had 50. So we're not talking about teams that had bad regular seasons that limped in under 500. These were high-quality teams that have played well for the majority of the season. So we shouldn't be, we should be surprised, but I'm just saying we shouldn't be overly shocked at what took place. Speaking of what took place, let's back up a little bit and let's go to last night's action where the Pacers, who were up 1-0, just went up 2-0 in a thrilling 120-119 victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like I said, to go up 2-0 in their best of 7 series. And what can you say about Indiana? A team that struggled the first half of the year and has really hit their stride. Why? Because I think about the totality of their parts. Obviously, you could talk about the play of Tyrese Halliburton, obviously hitting the game-winning 3 with under 3 seconds left. But also you have to look at the play of others. Naismith, what he's been doing, shooting the ball from 3. Nembhard in the backcourt, obviously with Halliburton. But also Miles Turner and other players that are also part of the team, how they went and they played exceptional ball over the course of this game. But then you have to look at Cleveland now, right? Down 0-2. They got injury concerns, right? Darius Garland, with obviously the toe, did not play in game number 2 or game number 1. DeAndre Hunter with the dislocated thumb on the shooting hand, he did not play. That's a big part of their team as their 6th man. And obviously, Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley, not playing as well. So you look at a team in Cleveland that was missing 3 out of their top, I would say 6, 7 guys going against a team like Indiana that want to play up and down with pace. This is why the series is 2-0. It's going to be interesting to see what transpires as this heads to Indiana with the Pacers up 2-0. This is a big, big spot for Cleveland. And I wonder how many of these guys will suit up and play with basically their season on the line, because there's no way they're going to go down 0-3 and come back and win the series, even though they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference coming in. Let's head to the Western Conference, where the Warriors got a huge 99-88 win, covering the 7-point spread versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it is a crazy game to look at, because the fact that you lose Steph Curry in the second quarter, and you're thinking, well, Minnesota's going to go ahead and make a run, and they're going to go ahead and get a win. But the fact that Minnesota in that second quarter was outscored 26-11 by the Golden State Warriors team. Why? No, they did it again. Bad Buddy. Buddy Hield, what a fantastic performance again for Golden State. This is back-to-back games for the Bahamian bad man, as he obviously was great in game number 7 for the Golden State Warriors in their win over the Houston Rockets. So they set up a 1-0 series lead. So what went wrong for Minnesota? Simply put, Ant-Man was not that man. Anthony Edwards, 1 point in the first half. Looked, I don't know if it was disengaged, not motivated, shot was off. I don't know what you want to look at, but there was obviously, Ant did not play up to his quality self. And of course, that led to the loss by the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we have to see the adjustments in game number 2. Niles Reed was good. We'll see what happens here, but it's really a big spot for a Minnesota Timberwolves team that could find themselves 0-2. I expect them to throw a huge knockout punch in game number 2, especially knowing that Steph Curry is not going to play, and they could probably adjust it and be a little bit better schematically. Let's head to the college game, where Todd Golden, the championship coach of the Florida Gators, was just rewarded with a contract extension through 30-31. It's a 6-year extension that will pay Todd one of the highest paid coaches in the country. This is according to our good friend of the program, Jeff Goodman. And you look at what Todd Golden has done at 39 years old, winning a national championship, coming from the University of San Francisco. Yes, he had ties to the SEC, being that he worked for Bruce Pearl for his first job as a director of basketball operations. But Todd has done such an amazing job in Florida. You go down and look at Florida in the SEC, that's football country. But he has made it basketball country with the style of play, what they were do how he developed his guards. And he's got an interesting team with a top 20 class coming back this past year. Todd Golden did an outstanding job with the Florida Gators team, and you must admit, not only are they the national champions, but you got to think about probably from about February 1st on, they were the best team in college basketball, right? Going through the SEC, winning the SEC title in a league that is loaded with quality teams. Todd Golden gets a well-deserved 6-year contract extension by the Florida Gators. Congrats to Coach. Coming up next, after the commercial break, we'll get into our award tour, where we'll start to look at the future markets of 2 series, the games that will be played not on Wednesday, on Thursday. That will be obviously Timberwolves and the Warriors. And then we'll look at Cleveland versus Indiana. We'll be back with our award tour after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 147. And it's time to get into our award tour while we break down the future markets of the NBA playoffs. And we're going to kind of slow play this a little bit because we can't really focus on games that are played on Wednesday night, which is games number 2 of Boston and New York, with New York up 1-0. Same thing with Denver, up 1-0 versus the Thunder. So we're going to focus on the 2 games, or the 2 series that aren't being played Wednesday, leading off for Thursday's game between the Timberwolves and the Warriors. Obviously, looking at the series spread winner right now, you still have the Minnesota Timberwolves as a -180. Right now, it's up to a -210 favorite, plus 152 or plus 176 right this second by Golden State. Why has it moved 30 cents? Simply put, they announced Steph Curry has been out for a week. So that means he's going to miss multiple games in this series, probably missing 2, if not 3 games. So when you start to really dig into it, you know, the Golden State at plus 1.5 games is at -188. I said going into the series, excuse me, that I thought that Minnesota's going to win it in about 5 games. Well, it's probably not going to get there. So I'm going to go the other way and say Minnesota wins -1.5 games, meaning Minnesota's got to win the series in 6 games or less. That's a plus 132. I look at this team. I think Minnesota will be way more motivated and be far more ready to attack this series now that we know what's going on with Steph's injury. But you look at the total number of games. Over-under is over 168. I'm sorry, over was 6.5. It's plus 168. Under is -210. Because I think they believe that he's going to miss significant time. So I don't think you can bet under 6.5 games at -210. There's no value. Particularly, I think it's going to be in 6. To me, you do one of 2 things. Either you bet it at 6 games at plus 164. If you're worried about the gentleman's sweep, either way, I just think you go under. You look at the Golden State Warriors, or in my case, Minnesota Timberwolves, -1.5 games at plus 132. Let's head to the prop market here where it gets a little bit interesting because there isn't a lot of props at record time, which is Wednesday afternoon in regards to this podcast. So they have a couple of things. And to score 50-plus points in any game, 18-1. No way I'm betting that. And to make 10-plus made threes in any game, 30-1. No way I'm not taking it. But the 2 that deal with Golden State are interesting. Jimmy Butler scored 20-plus points in every game at plus 290. But the one I like is Bad Buddy. Buddy Hield to make 2-plus made threes in every game is right now at plus 195. Why do I think this is a bet? Because that's what Buddy does. Buddy's a shooter. That's all he's ever been. And that's what his job's going to be now, is to knock down shots. Doesn't matter if Steph is there or not. Because he's played well, particularly the last 2 games, and I think he has to take on the role of Klay Thompson as a shooter, he's going to get the shot attempts. And he's not going to be afraid to take it. So to me, Buddy Hield plus 195 to make 2-plus made threes in every game of this series is what would be the prop I would look at. Let's head to the East, where it's a 2-0 series lead for Indiana, and now they are a -198 favorite, plus 166 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And when you really look at it, the series spread right now, Indiana -1.5 games at -124, plus -2.5 games at plus 164. What they're saying to you is, the sweet spot is, do they get 1 or 2 games? Meaning Cleveland. I can't take the chance that Donovan Mitchell gets hot, these guys get back, and it's at plus 164. So I'm going to take Indiana -1.5 and -124. You got to win 2 of the next 5. You have to win 2 of the next 4 games. And 3 of them are going to be in your building. For a team that's playing really good basketball, versus a team that's very injured. Yes, is it intriguing to take Indiana minus 2.5 games at plus 164? Absolutely. But we don't know with this game being played on Friday what is going to be the injury report, right? They could get these guys back. They may gut it up and play. So the safer way to do it is Indiana minus 1.5 games at minus 124. When you look at the series spread, over 6.5 games, meaning going 7, plus 160, under, minus 200. If you think there's injury concerns, and the way Cleveland's looked, there's no way that you're going to bet this going 7 games. You don't see it that way, right? If you're leaning Indiana, it's probably going 6 games or less, so you're not going to bet it at minus 200. So same thing. Do you want to bet it at 6 games at plus 240? 5 games plus 540. Simply put, Indiana minus 1.5 games at minus 124 is the play. 3-point shooting leader is interesting. I went on yesterday on Sports Grid and I said that Aaron Naismith at 5-1 should be the leader. Well, he hit 5 threes in game 2. He's at plus 115. That's his role. Yes, you can look at Max Strus at plus 140. You can look at Donovan Mitchell plus 750. Aaron Naismith has been on a heater. And that's the guy that you may give the shot up to, and the majority of his shots will be from three-point land. I know it's not a lot of plus money, but it's plus money. Aaron Naismith to lead the series in total made threes at plus 115. Coming up next, we will get into our scouting report where we'll break down matchups that will take place, particularly that would be game number 2 between Golden State and Minnesota, and game number 3 for Indiana versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll be back with our scouting report after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 147, and it's time to get into our scouting report where we have the future, the games tipping off over the next couple of days in the Western and Eastern Conference playoffs. And we'll just go in order how games are going to be played, and that is first leading off game number 2 between the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves are minus 10.5 point favorites. Over-under is sitting at about 201.5. So where can we find ourselves some value here? It's a big spread. Why is it a big spread? Matt and I were just talking about it in the commercial break. You know why. Steph Curry's out. You also got a team, obviously, with the grade 1 hamstring strain, but you also have a desperate team in Minnesota that does not want to go down 2 games to none. So where can we find value? Start digging around FanDuel. You try to find, which has always been an intriguing market for me, which is the player performance doubles. Now, if you want to side, it's Minnesota minus 10.5, but I'm not overly convinced. I'm worried that FanDuel in all the game 2s, if you look at the game 2s, right, Knicks, Celtics minus 10.5. They lost home court advantage, right? OKC minus 10.5. They lost home court advantage to Denver. They're doing the same thing with Minnesota. They're throwing out a big number here to get you to bite. So that's why I'm concerned, because I think the number is really high. Could Minnesota do it? Yes. But you're also dealing with a championship and prideful franchise in Golden State that doesn't get blown out a whole hell of a lot. So where do you look? How about this one? Naz Reid, 12 plus points, Minnesota to win at plus 102. So if you kind of look at the points prop going into game number 2, Naz Reid is over under 12.5 points. Okay? So over 12.5 points for Naz Reid is at minus 110, right? If you think you want to get a little bit of plus money and you think Minnesota's going to win, Naz Reid 12 plus points, Minnesota to win is at plus 106, right? It's not a big number, but with the fact that Minnesota being 10.5 point favorites, you're not going to get a lot of extra juice with anything tied into Minnesota unless it's something that goes way above what they want to do. If you think Naz Reid at 19 points in game number 1 gets you 15 plus Minnesota to win, now you're at plus 170. So there's a way to look at it. Try to tie in Naz Reid. I may just go with the plus 106. Minnesota wins, Naz Reid 12 plus points. Let's head to the Eastern Conference. We have game number 3 between, obviously, Cleveland and Indiana. Now, this is different. Cleveland is a 2-point favorite. Why? They need to win. Now, if you try to look at, in regards to players that are going to play, you have numbers out for Garland, for Mobley, and obviously and I don't see anything, I don't believe, for DeAndre Hunter as of yet, but that could change here as we get closer to game time. So this number is baked into the -2. I have a feeling that Cleveland's going to steal game 3. I still think Indiana wins the series because of they're up 2-0 and have all these games at home. But I feel like you're going to get the best punch out of Cleveland. I'm going to look at Cleveland on the money line of -134 to get the win. So then you start looking at props, right? Are there any props that we could look at that make a lot of sense? Aaron Naismith over 1.5 made threes is -205. Obviously, you're not taking that. Aaron Naismith to make 3 threes is at plus 164. So that is where I'm looking at. I've been a believer of Aaron Naismith beginning of this series. I said that he was going to lead the series in 3-point makes. And if I think he's going to keep that lead, and he's the leader of the club as a plus 115 to lead the series in threes made, then I got to think he's going to knock down 3 of them. They're going to do what they got to do. And at the end of the day, if I'm Cleveland, if there's something I'm giving up, it's a 3-point shot. I'm daring Naismith to get it again. Aaron Naismith, 3 plus 3s at plus 164. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 147 for May 7th. For all things sports gambling, download that app. Pre-game, in-game, post-game, props, predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. We'll be back with another episode next week. Remember, smarter to be on Sports Grid. Good night.